Hello everyone, James Donaldson here, and I'm bringing you a video on pretty much the two ways to manipulate a slide during a reload for a pistol. Most importantly, a semi-automatic pistol. Most importantly, your common semi-automatic pistols that have your common slides. Just trust me on this one. Alright everyone, jumping into the meat and potatoes. First I want to cover, because I don't think I did a stellar job in my pistol function video, on how a pretty common semi-automatic handgun reloads. So, as it passes through there, magazine goes in. This is an open chamber. When you close it, the slide strips a round off the top of the magazine, puts it into battery. So basically it comes from here to here. The slide is holding down the next round. When the slide comes back, it grabs this little lip here. It comes back, throws the round out, and then as it comes forward, takes the next round off of the magazine. So to give you an idea of what the gun itself looks like when it does that, the chamber is indeed separate. So, rounds in the magazine. Granted, they're dummy rounds, so it wouldn't have gone off anyway, but there is no round in the chamber. Nothing. So, you have to rack it back. Now, rounds in the magazine, still round in the chamber. So, I think you get the point. Where I'm going with this is, when you have an empty magazine, the slide is always moving back and forth. It catches on this part, well, the lever right here, this gun is ambidextrous, gets pushed up by this part of the magazine right here when it runs empty. This part is down when it's got rounds in it. This action locks the slide to the rear. If not for that, the slide just goes back and forth. So, when you chamber around and you fire, the slide ejects the round, as I demonstrated a moment ago, loads in a new round automatically. So early on, these were called automatic pistols because they loaded automatically. Obviously, the term has changed a bit since then. Getting back to it. So, slide goes back and forth with no magazine, and of course it goes back and forth with a magazine in it. Again, an empty magazine is what holds the slide back. You can also, on miniguns, not all, push the lever up and lock the slide back like that. This is how sometimes I load the gun in the first place, especially if it's a fully loaded magazine, because it's easier to click the magazine into place. So, let's talk about reloading. Empty magazine, you're shooting, you've run dry, it's very obvious that the gun is out. So, load new magazine in. I hit the slide release again. Slide release right there. The other option is to do what's called the Sling Shot method. So, load in your new magazine. You pull the slide back, which releases tension on the lever. The lever drops down because nothing's pushing it up. And a spring is pushing it, nothing's pushing it up. And then you let go. It's loaded, kind of like you could do from the beginning by racking a slide all the way back. A somewhat relevant argument for the slingshot method is you're only teaching one move. Whether you're loading a new magazine in, putting it around the chamber, whether it's empty, putting a magazine in, or you have a malfunction and you want to tap the magazine or replace the magazine, you then pull the slide back. Let it slam home. So, you're only teaching one thing. That said, my argument is pretty easy to teach. Anyway, another halfway relevant argument I see is people talk about the loss of fine motor skill during such as an encounter where you have to defend yourself. And this being a fine motor skill, to which my response, respectfully, is trigger squeeze is also a fine motor skill to a degree. So there we have that. Some people disagree with those things, and that's fine. A big piece of this, which I'm going to touch on again, is training. Don't just train in the safety of your basement for dry fire, or safety of a simple indoor range. If you can, get to an outdoor range, get to private property where you can safely set up a range, meaning you have a proper backstop. Probably do another video on that. But maybe where you can incorporate, with safety, some exercises, other things to get your heart rate up, get some other things going that may intensify your experience. Doing competitions is actually relatively inexpensive, and they're fairly popular. So the chances are you could go to one, and just alone having the timer at a competition or a timer on your own is also going to help up that for the sake of training. All good things to be doing. Now, moving on, I did an anecdote I wanted to throw in was when I was in college, I went to the Winchester shooting range, and I was told by an ex-cop that I shouldn't do this because it's hard on the gun. Really? That is harder on the gun than... And keep in mind, I was shooting a Glock that day. So some of you are going to understand that means Glocks are basically the Toyota Corolla of the gun world. Not only are they relatively inexpensive, but they're also extremely robust, durable, and have incredible longevity. So, it's almost like saying don't kick the tires of your Corolla. That's just silly. Now, a couple caveats. One big one is, remember this phrase, you must conform to your weapon because it will not conform to you. I was just waving around a PPK. Here's a Glock 17 that I've been demonstrating with. No external safeties. It has even 2 slide release levers. This PPK not only doesn't have a slide release lever, but it is very odd in that it also goes against my argument for against Sling Shot as far as slide mounted safety. What I mean by that is that slide is racked back. Pretend I put a magazine in. To get the slide forward, I have to slingshot it. My method is that I hook my finger on the safety there, because otherwise I'm in danger of activating the safety. Now, a Beretta 92 FS, or M9, also has a slide mounted safety. And the defense of the PPK is very recessed, and having owned one of these and used it for concealed carry, it really doesn't ever catch on anything, and that wasn't an issue. But not the Beretta. The Beretta's is very large, and it protrudes quite a lot from the slide. It is actually a lot easier, especially because it's ambidextrous, it's a lot easier to accidentally put the safety on that gun. Now with that gun, it also has a slide release. So in that case, I would say, may as well use the slide release because it avoids the complication and drama going on up here with the safety. Okay, this gun, you obviously don't have a choice. Now another gun, an interesting anecdote, is I had a Walther PK380 that also does not have a slide release. However, being thinner than my Glock, I was actually able to wrap my thumb, granted I had to break my grip, I could wrap my thumb around and catch the charging or the ejection port and pull back the slide just enough to be able to release it forward. Why? Why did you do that? Well, something very important to me is one-handed manipulation of your gun. And that's with both hands, by the way. Admittedly, I need to work on my left more. You should be able to reload your weapon and completely operate your weapon from unable to fire with one hand. And that's to say that your other hand or arm could be injured, or you're keeping accountability of a child, or you're a spy and there's a briefcase handcuffed to your wrist. All decent possibilities. So, for that reason, I'm a big proponent of the slide release because one-hand manipulation, and this gun very easily allows for it. So, all things being equal, pick one. Pick the one that works for you, that works for your weapon, and go with it. Train with it if you can. Train both ways. For instance, as I said, the Glock, I could train both ways. Have at least some familiarity, because one thing with your practicing and you're getting familiar with your weapon is if you do something once or one more time than you have before, you have that much more experience. So if you have at least slingshotted and had your hands go through the motion of loading a magazine, racking the slide back, and sending it home, and getting your sight picture back, that is better than having never done it and fumbling through it. So, if you enjoyed the video, if you found it helpful, please give me a thumbs up below. Of course, always feel free to leave a comment or question in the comments section, and helping us out by subscribing on YouTube or on Patreon is much appreciated. With nothing else to say, this is James Donaldson with the Contemporary Gentleman, and until next time, keep your composure.